back. So the recording is on in case you want to take a look at this or share this at another time. I know that we have a number of people who do view our recordings. If you are a webinar series subscriber, you get access to all of the webinars. So we encourage you to do that because we do record them all. But welcome. This particular webinar is part of our research and strategy series. This one is about stepping on the gas by setting and measuring against your goals. My name is Margie Hayworth. I am the Director of Accounts and Operations here at Keystone Click, which means I have my fingers in just about everything. I get a little taste of it all. Working with me today for this presentation is Mitch. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mitch?
Sure. Hi, my name is Mitchell Gobin. I'm the web developer for Keystone Click, and I'll be talking about the more technical side and the data analytics of these measurements and these goals that we're going to be talking about today. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you all, and I look forward to your questions in this presentation.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm going to see, for some reason, this didn't go. There we go. So today we're talking about measurement, like we said. Why do you measure? We've covered a whole bunch of different topics that have to do with research and strategy that help you set your foundations for your marketing efforts. Measurement is certainly one of those foundations. Before you launch that campaign or even spend $1 on it, you should think about how you're going to know if you're succeeding. And that's where measurement helps you. So why measure? Marketing without measurement is like playing darts in the dark. You can't see where to aim. You don't know what your results you have gotten. So you're just going to make guesses as to where to throw next. Clearly, the fun stops when the dart goes where it shouldn't. So a measurement helps you avoid that very tragic end. So measurement starts with setting goals. The first step. It's really tempting to skip this step, and we see a lot of our clients skipping it. But if you do, you're going to spend more time and more money experimenting before you get things right. That doesn't mean that you won't need to experiment with your marketing. We've all had campaigns that we've tried it, it worked, it didn't work. But if you're not measuring, you don't know how well it's worked or how you might change it so that it works better. Without measurement, you also could miss out on opportunities. It allows you to see things, oh, we expected it to work that way, but it worked a different way. And you can see that because it's measuring. It's a basic step that helps you focus your marketing and your business on what is important to you. So here at Keystone Click, we use SMART goals. And what does that mean? Strategic, you can read the slide, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. I'm going to use a silly example of being a child prodigy. My goal when I was younger was I wanted to be a child prodigy. Was that a very strategic goal? Not so much. I don't know why I wanted it. Was it measurable? Well, I really had no idea how one was considered a prodigy versus just, the regular kid. Was it attainable? Well, clearly at this stage, I'm no longer a child. It may be too late for me. It's no longer relevant to what I do. And I never set a time to say I need to be a child prodigy by age 10. So you can see that that goal wasn't very measurable. Okay, so a real world example, and one we hear all the time, I want to grow my business. It's a worthy aspiration, but it isn't a SMART goal.
So when we talk about SMART goals, you want to structure these, and we found this format works the best. And feel free to adjust this format that fits your goals better. This is just a basic template, right? A good example of this is by October 2021, Keystone Click's websites will have 10 conversions per month, right? So that's the by day, month, or year, your name will reach X number of X metric every so often, right? Setting those in this format or in a format very similar to this will help you stay organized.
Absolutely.
And
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mitch. I mean, there are many goals. They don't exactly fit the formula. You might want to increase website visits by 10% in the first 30 months of the year, or 30 months, 3 months of the year, things like that. So it's a rough formula, but it says, give us a time, give us a metric, and give us a number for that metric.
So like, what would you define as like SMART goals? Like, how would you define your SMART goals up front?
Well, I think the easy way to talk about that is to give some examples here. I want to grow could instead become, I want to increase awareness on social media as measured by engagement or impressions. It may mean I want to increase conversions from my website by 10% or revenue by 15%. So we have a couple examples here. Basically, you need to know where you are going before you start down that path. Think of your goals as kind of like the beginning when you're going on a trip. You have your GPS, you plug in where you're going, and the route is created for you. That's the idea here. You build out your goals, and then your strategy will follow from them. Okay, so we've given a couple examples of metrics in our goals here, but it's really important to choose the right metrics for you and your goals. We all know that hard numbers are easy. I mean, they're easy to understand. I know the cost of something, the profit, the revenue, the pipeline growth, but there are a lot of things in marketing we do that aren't hard numbers. For instance, most of us marketers use some version of content marketing for our companies. Everyone knows it's incredibly powerful, it's successful, but how do you share that progress with the rest of your organization or your boss that comes to you and says, hey, is this working? What are we doing? Soft numbers give you an indication of what you're achieving with your goal. Let's say your goal is brand awareness, another kind of soft goal that's hard to measure. Without going out and taking a survey, how could you measure it? You can measure the number of people who have seen your ad. You can measure the number of people who have clicked on it. You may even measure repeat exposure to your ad. But it's harder and more expensive to measure whether people actually remember you, which brings us to the 3 A's of metrics.
So with the 3 A's of metrics, it's always important to know why data is needed, right, before collecting it. A common mistake is to collect data before working out how it will be analyzed or used. Some of the basic questions that you should ask yourself before collecting any data at all are as follows. What data points do you want to gather? Where will you get this data and how will it be collected? Why is that information needed? And what question is it going to answer? And who will use the data once collected? Then ask yourself the 3 A's. Are they available? Is this data available? Is it accurate? And can I take action on it? Which brings me to the second A, or the first A, which is available. A lot of this data is readily available to you, right? And some of these things can be done through, some WordPress plugins. 40% of the web is WordPress nowadays, and almost everybody uses the internet at some point or another, right? So the data is available, it's out there. But one thing you don't want to do is let the time you spent getting it exceed the value of what that data is going to return to you.
Exactly.
And then arguably one of the most important ones is accurate, right? Without accurate data, things can go awry. Sometimes data has not been collected in the right way at the time or in the right place. A simple example to understand this is thinking about a grocery store inventory, right? By the time the stock person has counted everything on the shelf, customers have already bought 3 more cans of soup. Does that mean the data is useless? No, but does it mean that the store manager has to understand the level of error in the data and not to order too many or too few cans of soup for the next week?
Yeah, exactly. I want to mention that accuracy, you guys may have heard about this. Accuracy is the reason that Google is changing the way it delivers website analytics. A lot of people have been using Google's website analytics as a source of data. But with privacy concerns, allowing people to opt out of cookies, it's making the tracking of data inaccurate. So Google has introduced a new form of measurement on a new platform called GA4. And we're going to talk more about that later, but I wanted to bring it up here as we're talking about accuracy, because it's the whole reason why they changed.
And before we move on to actionable, one thing I wanted to mention was, popular to contrary belief, right? Like, not all data is good data. You want to have accurate, you want to have concise data. You want to make sure that that data you're gathering is very pointed and very solid.
Exactly. I started my career, I don't know if you know this, Mitch, fresh out of grad school in survey research. That's why this topic is so near and dear to my heart. Um,
Really?
yeah, it was amazing. The number of questions clients wanted to ask in surveys, and they were paying good money for these surveys. They were not prepared
So
to,
like,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so like, what's one of the like coolest questions, like one of the coolest bits of tidbit information you got from that time in survey research?
It's way too many. But for example, people ask questions that they may or may not be able to like do anything about. I don't know if everybody remembers when the Exxon Valdez had a leak in the very delicate area in Alaska, and we were hired by an interesting party to assess the value of a single duck. How much was a duck available? You know, how important was that? What was the value of that? Because they wanted to measure the catastrophe in some kind of measurable form. We also had a car manufacturer that came to us, and several of their questions were questions they were not prepared to take action on. For instance, don't ask people if they like red cars if you can't buy red paint. So making sure that your data, it makes a difference to what you do. Knowing the answer to that, is that going to make a difference in the actions that you take moving forward? So identify your key performance indicators. You may measure and track a lot of pieces of data in your marketing efforts, but it is important to identify your key performance indicators. These are the ones that move you to take action, to do something. And that may vary depending on your role in an organization. You may have a different set of key metrics if you're the campaign manager for an email campaign. What's really important to you then is, hey, did people open it? Because if they didn't open it, you know, you need to change your subject line. Did they click on it? You know, there's a whole bunch of measures there. However, if you're a marketing director, you're going to want to know if that whole campaign had a good close rate and return on investment. So that's a different set of measures. If you're the business owner or the CEO, you may be interested in individual campaigns, but it's more likely that you're looking at the marketing budget and overall ROI for that department. So all those measures and all those pieces of data are important, but know which ones are key to you and your position at any one time. Now, we have a list of a lot of KPIs here, working from the very granular, like we're saying, newsletter rates and clicks, to the executive decision level as we go up through conversions, cost per inquiry, cost to acquire a new customer. Oops, I'm sorry, I went a little bit too fast. And then finally, sales based on that. So there are a lot of KPIs you can do. Just be aware of what for your particular job makes a difference. As we move in forward, as I already hit the slide button too fast, we're going to talk a little bit about tools. What are the different kind of tools you can use to help you collect the data you need to make good decisions? We mentioned before Google Analytics, and this is one of the most basic forms of data collection for anybody who has a website, which should be all of you. But if it's not, there are other places to measure things. But Google Analytics provides site metrics. So things like audience, your overall traffic, how many people are bouncing, what devices they use, acquisition, how did they come to your channel, or what channel did they use to come to your site? What did they do once they got there? Those are the behavior reports. Did they go to a landing page? Where did they go next? And then if you set up conversions, you can set up goals and see what they've done on the website. Now, as we mentioned before, Google Analytics is running into some issues now with the privacy concerns that people have. With those privacy concerns, people are opting out of cookies, and cookies are the way that Google Analytics tracked people, individual people. That's becoming something we can no longer do. So the Google Analytics information is becoming less accurate. What did Google do? They know we still need to measure. So they came out with Google Analytics GA4 in response to this. A couple of the nice things about GA4 is it measures not only your website, but also other digital forms that you are out there with, like your apps. As of this year, any new Google account, analytics account is a GA4 account. You can't get a universal account. You can only get a GA4 account now. The data is created using machine learning, and it's focused on the user journey as measured through events. So it's not individuals in what they do, it's events that happen, and then they use those events in a predictive modeling to tell you something about your users out there. So it's a different cat. I strongly suggest that if you have a universal account, you also set up a Google Analytics 4 account so that you can compare. And when they do eventually get rid of analytics, there's talk of that, you are prepared and understand your data as it comes in through GA4.
And we'll touch on that a little bit more later as well. But one thing I wanted to mention is, for those of you that don't know, that these Google Analytics and GA4, you can make those for free. That doesn't cost anything, and it's a very good and solid resource for you to use for these metrics.
Absolutely. And most of the tools that we're going to talk about today, there is at least a free version, and that is true of some of the tools we're going to talk about now, like Moz. Moz is a very effective SEO tool. It gives you things like the ability to do keyword research, look at the links and explore possible links, backlinks for your website. It gives you a rank checker to see how you're doing in terms of rank on Google's pages and page optimization tools. It has a free version, also has a paid version. SEMrush is a similar tool. It has slightly different reports in there, but essentially technical site audits, on-page reviews, keyword research, positions tracking, link building, all the things you need to do to get your site found. SpyFu is another one of these tools, and it's particularly good at competitive research, comparing you to your competitors. And then you have social media metrics. Any of the social media platforms that you may be on have analytics. They could be called insights, analytics, a number of things, but they give you a feeling for what's happening on your social media accounts in terms of followers, awareness, and engagement. Definitely check into those. Another source of potential measurement for you is if you have a CRM. We happen to use SharpSpring in-house. So this was a report from an email campaign that we sent out. It gives us important things like we were talking about, whether we had an open rate, what the click rate was through, how many were delivered, did we have any problems with the email. Even without a CRM, if you're using MailChimp or Constant Contact, you can get analytics from those as well. And we encourage you to use them to help you understand whether your campaigns are successful. Mm-hmm. There are additional tools, as Mitch has mentioned, that can be used on your websites.
Yeah, and something I want to mention, the web nowadays is the most powerful it has ever been. There are plenty of ways to gather information, and there's plenty of ways to use that information to your benefit. I'm going to be talking about some WordPress plugins today, real quick, only because that 40% of all websites on the internet are WordPress. The rest of them are broken down into smaller chunks, but those smaller chunks all have analytics plugins or options for you out there, either through the tools Margie had mentioned previously, or through the providers of those website platforms. But for WordPress, you have your analytics, your on-site analytics plugins. I'm breaking it up into two categories. On-site analytics, all that means is that it's tracking stuff on your site specifically, not coming in from user data or from cookies or from Google Analytics. All this is tracking is who visits your page, what are they clicking on, heat maps in certain areas. A lot of these plugins also have versions of them that are both for Google Analytics as well.
Wait, Mitch, before you move on to those, I want to ask a question about the WordPress on-site analytics. You mentioned heat maps. I'm not sure that everyone knows what a heat map is. I mean, there's some classic, as you can see how many people are clicking and visitors and likes and comments, but why would I want a heat map? Tell me what that would do for me.
So that's a good question. And thank you for, checking me on that, because I tend to use jargon as a web developer a little more often than I should. But a heat map, what it is think of it as like a thermal imaging camera of your website, right? You're looking at it, and you can see where people are hovering their mice, where they're interacting, where they're clicking, and it's going to show you that in graphical data. It's going to show you the blue areas as cold, where people's mice aren't going to be, and where they're hot, where they're clicking on your CTAs, where their mouses are sitting for long periods of time.
Mhm.
Those are really useful and really beneficial when you're taking a look at landing pages and seeing how people are interacting with those.
Great, thank you. It helps you understand how people are consuming your site and allows you to improve your pages. That's
Absolutely.
so, okay, I interrupted you. We were talking about on-site analytics and we were moving on to the ones with the uses Google, right?
Yes. So this list is the same as the list previously, but they have the Google Analytics as well in there. So these are going to be more robust dashboards. They're either going to be in your WordPress dashboard or through the provider that you're of the plugin. These are currently using the universal Google Analytics that Margie had mentioned previously. In the future, as GA4 becomes more popular and becomes the industry standard, which is it inevitably going to be, these plugins are automatically going to be transitioning over to those GA4 compatible level. They're GA4 compatible now, but it's going to be more focused on GA4
Right.
later down the road.
I think they're probably giving time for people to understand the GA4 measures versus the universal measures.
Exactly. They're giving the users and even the users and the people who are browsing your websites the ability to kind of pick and choose where that data is coming from at the moment. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that, a lot of these plugins are free, right? Almost all of them have a free version. The difference between the free and the premium is that you are unlocked to more data points and more advanced functionality, the ability to export reporting to interested parties, the ability to see trends going forward. So the basic analytics that you can get from these are still very powerful and are going to be accurate, but the premium versions are the ones that are going to have the heat maps, as we talked about before, or the advanced functionality.
That's great to know. Okay, so you have a whole lot of tools to work with. But okay, we've talked about measuring, but now what? Now what do we do with all these measures we've taken? You have a whole lot of data. Let's make it information, right? So how do we use these measures to evaluate what we've done and improve so that we're more successful? We're going to give you a little example here of how to do that. Let's say we had a website called widgets.com. I don't know if that really exists, but it would be an amazing website to own. Our goal is to increase website visitors. I would argue that you should have a number there with the hopes that more sales come to your business because more people are visiting your website. It's important when you set a goal like that to decide how you're going to measure how people are coming in. An obvious answer is site visitors. That gives you an idea of brand awareness, how many people are coming in, but you might also want to measure things like bounce rate. Bounce rate is a measure of customer loyalty. It's a measure of did people find what they were looking for on the website? You're going to want to measure conversions, like how many contact forms did somebody fill out? And then we're going to add our business measures here, the average value of a sale on my website and the investment of time we put into this campaign that we're going to run. Right here, you see a list of current numbers, what we're experiencing before we run our campaign. It's important that you track measures over time. So getting that like baseline before you start your campaign is really important. So we have that here. And now we launch our campaign. So we had all those measures and we measured at the end of an 8-week campaign to see what happened. As you can see, oops, my lines are off. Our site visitors have increased quite a bit. You can see that our bounce rate has gone down. That means people are not bouncing, they're staying with us. So that's great. We have increased conversions and even our average sale has gone up with this campaign. We spent about $7,000 on this campaign, $4,000 in hours of people's work toward this and $3,000 in the ad spend to earn an estimated income of $38,500. So the ROI for this campaign was 450%. Now, every one of us wants to have that campaign. Oh my gosh, sign me up, right? But it really is important that you take the time to set your goals, and then track them and measure them so that you can say, hey, this campaign actually was a success. Let's do it again, or another one like it.
Question I have about that before you move on real quick
Oh, sure.
is like, at the end of that 8-week campaign, what is your new baseline? Does it set to that 8-week campaign mark, or do you wait for it to even back out again? How do you reset your baseline for your next campaign?
Well, that is a very good question. The way we do tracking for ourselves and for our clients is we actually take a monthly look at all of our measures, any of the measures that we feel are baseline, website measures, campaign, we'd actually track our campaign measures a little bit separately, open rates, those kinds of things. But our key business ones, we track on a monthly basis so that we can see the up down. So that if we didn't do another campaign, it's likely that the number would go down, but hopefully not as much. So when we're for the next campaign and we want to say, how did it do? We can look across that and say, hey, yes, it bumped us up again for that time period. Make sense?
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great to know. Thank you.
Absolutely. So from a summary point of view, measurement helps you make your strategic decisions and confirm that you are achieving your goals. It's important from a step-by-step process here to define those goals. Choose your metrics wisely, keeping in mind your key performance measures and the 3 A's of what makes a good measure for you. And then to use those measurements to take action. Did that campaign work? Did it not? What can we do to tweak? Oh, next time, maybe I should have measured that so I know better what to do next. So as long as you're continually learning from your marketing efforts, these measures help you do that.
And as you grow, and as those measurements you take action on to improve your results and all that, it also helps you choose the tools you're going to be using as well. Certain tools you might pick might not be giving you all the metrics you wanted, and you might need to look or use a combination of different things to do so. So those metrics help you choose your tools that you're going to help as well.
Right. We were discussing this ahead of time, and Mitch asked me, as a developer to a marketer, what should I start with? And my answer to that was start with the basics. Definitely have a Google Analytics account so that you can see what's happening with your website. Definitely measure your social media goals if you're on social media. Definitely, if you're doing any kind of email campaign, there are basic measures there. You can do all of that with free versions. It's when you start needing to be more sophisticated in your both marketing efforts and your understanding of what can happen and how to improve it that you should start researching your paid campaigns. But lay down the basis with the free tools that you can. I do want to mention that this is a complete webinar series and we're nearing the end of it. We have 2 of our most popular parts of our webinar series coming up. Cocktails and case studies is where we actually talk to a business that we've worked with to talk about, in this case, how research and strategy has helped them with their process. That's going to be September 9th. From 4 to 5. Notice the time change because, cocktails at 1 might make the afternoon a little sluggish. So we're going to move that to 4 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Then we have an expert panel discussion happening on September 23rd, and that's where we bring in 3 or 4 experts in this field from other organizations, ask them some really hard questions, give you the opportunity to ask questions as well. And again, this will all be about research and strategy on September 23rd, back at the 1 o'clock time. At this time, if you have any questions, we'd love to help answer them. We've
Absolutely
done a couple as we've gone through here today. If you please put them in the chat if you have them. You can also reach out to either Mitch or myself. Our emails are here. And again, this is recorded. So if you miss something would be helpful to you in the future, you can get back in and see what you need. We'll give you a minute here.
Yeah, absolutely. Our ears are open.
All right. I don't see anything other than we've discussed jumping in on the chat. I will say, I know there's a lot of questions, and I hear this from our clients on a day-to-day basis about measures, which are good measures, and the effects of GA4. So again, let us know if you would like any help understanding that kind of information. We're here to help with that. And I believe I'll be getting a blog out pretty soon on GA4, so that might help you as well. Thank you for your time today. Hopefully we'll see you for the next 2 cocktails and case studies and the panel discussion. Have a great day, folks.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Thanks for stopping by and have a good one.